Hello everybody, welcome back. Today we are back with some more book content, my favourite. Today I'm going to be talking through some of my autumn book recommendations and also what is on my TBR list for the upcoming autumn season. I've got my cup of tea ready, my books. There's a lot, I'm not going to lie. Like, I have my autumn recommendations, so that's ones that I've already read. And then I have my TBR, which could also be recommendations for you to read, but they're ones that I haven't read yet that I want to read this autumn. Let's just go because there is a lot for us to get through. Okay, so starting with my recommendations, I literally can't even lift them up because there's that many that top one's gonna fall off. There we go. We have quite a lot, and this isn't even all of them. I literally just can't lift them all up. But anyways, romance recs. I don't have that many. I think they are pretty much all, or like majority, Colleen Hoover. Okay, so these are my autumn romance recs. I will start with Colleen. So I have 3 Colleen books that I would like recommend for this time of year, like autumn, fall, whatever you want to call it. I know that these are popular. I know that most people have probably read them, but I'm including them anyways. First up we have It Ends With Us. Now this is on my like autumn recs purely because of It Starts With Us coming out. I don't really think that this book gives like autumn vibes, but It Starts With Us comes out next month. I think it comes out in October, so yeah, I feel like if you want to read that one in your autumn recommendations, your autumn TBR, you kind of need to read this one first. Basically it follows Lily and her relationship with her new like boyfriend Ryle and the ups and downs that they kind of have to go through. I kind of always never used to mention that it was like domestic violence in this book. Trigger warning, by the way, it does focus around like domestic abuse, domestic violence, but I feel like everybody knows that now, so I mean that is what it's about. It's about Lily facing that with Ryle. Then also there's like flashbacks to her first love Atlas, and then he comes back on the scene, so it's like a debate between Ryle and Atlas. But yeah, so It Starts With Us, the new one that comes out, is about Lily and Atlas, and I'm guessing it picks up from like where this one ends. Next up I have Layla. Now Layla isn't one of my fave Colleen reads, but it's kind of like a supernatural paranormal romance, so that's why it's in this list, this recommendations. Layla follows the relationship between Layla and I think he's called Leeds, yeah, between Layla and Leeds. They meet at like a B&B, and then basically she has an accident, like Layla gets into an accident, and then after that things just kind of get a bit strange, like she just doesn't seem like herself. So then he takes her back to the B&B where they met to kind of like try and get her back to normal, I suppose. But whilst they're there, like crazy stuff starts happening, and it's kind of like a love triangle situation but with a paranormal twist. This isn't my fave Colleen read, but like I said, I think it is good for this season, and it was not like anything that I'd read before. And next up, my favourite Colleen book of all time is Verity. This is wild. Like when I read this, I was literally shook. Like I said, it is my favourite Colleen book. So Verity is like a thriller, more of like a thrillery type, but it does have romance in there, and I'm putting it in here in this romance section purely because it's Colleen. But it follows Lauren, who is a writer, and basically she gets approached by this man called Jeremy, who is married to Verity. Verity was a writer, but she suffered an accident that basically means that she's like bedbound, she's not able to write anymore. So he contacts Lauren to finish the series that Verity started. So Lauren moves into their family home to kind of like get a feel for the space and try and get in Verity's headspace to be able to finish the series. But while she's there, like creepy stuff starts happening. She finds this manuscript which Verity has written before, and it's just crazy, it's wild. And the next romance rec that I have is Love and Other Words. This is one of my favourite romance books of all time. So this follows Elliot and Macy. Basically Elliot has like a cabin type house where his family lives, and then Macy's dad buys the one next door for them to go for like vacations, breaks and things like that. So it follows them from when they first meet when they're children, as their relationship like grows and develops, up until the point where they stop speaking. They don't speak for a long time, I'm not sure how long it is. Their whole relationship up to that point just stops. They don't speak for a few years, and then they bump into each other, which I love. It's a second chance romance, childhood friends to lovers, 2 of my favourite tropes. And I don't know if it's the fact that it's like at a cabin, but it just gives like cozy autumn vibes. And then the last sort of like romancy rec that I have is Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This isn't really like a romance, it's more of like a literary fiction, but I feel like it's based around love, like different kinds of love rather than like just reading about a relationship, if that makes sense. Basically this book is based around a small cafe in Tokyo where basically it's like rumoured to be able to allow you to time travel. So it follows like a few different like couples and a few different families as they sort of try and travel back. Okay, then I have two like literary fiction books. First up I have The Midnight Library. It wasn't my all-time favourite read, but I thought it was good, it was enjoyable, and again just gives like the cozy autumn vibes. But this follows the story of Nora, who basically tries to kill herself, or like does kill herself. Not really a spoiler, but maybe like a trigger warning I suppose. She does like commit suicide, and when she does, she's basically like transported to this like midnight library where each book in the library is like a different version of her life. So she kind of like goes through these different books, these different like endings or stories of her life, and she has to find one that she wants to live in. I feel like it is probably a bit predictable what happens, but again, I really liked it. I thought it was like a cozy, easy read. Then the next literary fiction one that I have is My Year of Rest and Relaxation. This is like not really a cozy autumn read. When I first read this, everyone was like, oh, it's dark, it's quite depressing, and I suppose it is. So I wouldn't say it's like a cozy, wholesome read by any means. So this follows a girl in New York in like the early 2000s. Basically her parents die and she's left with like a lot of money, and she just lives in this flat in New York. She has like a toxic relationship with her boyfriend, she has a toxic relationship with her best friend, and she essentially says that she wants to sleep for a year. So she has this really bad therapist who basically just prescribes her all of these drugs, and she literally does just that. Like she basically sleeps for a year from all of these pills. So yeah, this was like unlike anything that I'd read before, but I did really enjoy it. And I think like maybe because it's set in New York, maybe because of like the themes and the storyline, it just gives me more autumn vibes than summer. Then we move on to thriller slash murder mystery kind of vibes. First up I have The Silent Patient. This follows Theo, I think he's called, who is like a psychotherapist, and he basically gets this new job at like a mental facility where there is a patient called Alicia who is basically in there because she shot her husband in the head like 5 times, killed him, and hasn't spoke since. So Theo, this psychotherapist, takes the job because he is determined to make her speak. He's determined to be the one that sort of like fixes her and gets her to talk about what happened, why she shot her husband. So I would definitely recommend this one if you're like kind of trying to tiptoe into thrillers. The other 3 sort of like thriller murder mystery type vibe that I have is the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. They are kind of like a YA version of thriller murder mystery, but I found them really easy to read, really quick, without being like too cringe. So these 3 books follow Pippa, but the first one basically starts with her doing a school project on like a murder that happened in her town. She basically doesn't believe that the person that went down for this murder was actually guilty, so she is essentially like trying to clear his name and do like some more digging into the case to find out what really happened. It was really good. The first one is definitely my favourite out of the 3. So then you go on to the second one, and the second one basically is following Pippa. She has got a podcast from basically the like recognition and fame that came from solving the first case, and then basically someone close to her goes missing, or like something happens to someone close to her, so she's trying to sort that one out. And then the third one, something is happening to her, so she's trying to solve that mystery out. But yeah, I think overall this is like a solid trilogy. Like I said, the first one was my favourite, but I thought they were all good books, and again with them being like YA thriller murder mystery, they're easy to read but without being a little bit too cringy. Then on to fantasy. It wouldn't be one of my book rec videos, I don't think, without including these 2. So this is Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. This is a duology. Literally my favourite fantasy books ever. Like I'm not really a fantasy reader, I am more of a romance girl. But when I tell you I'm obsessed with these, I'm obsessed with this like universe, these characters, just love. So the first one is Six of Crows, and this basically follows like a gang, I suppose. So Kaz, he is like the leader of this gang, like this notorious criminal, and he is offered like a huge amount of money to essentially go and kidnap this doctor, basically creating this drug that would be like really bad for the world in this universe. Like, it would ruin everything as they know it. So he is offered like millions by this merchant to go and essentially kidnap him, like break him out of this prison that he's in, which is like one of the most secure prisons and places in this world. I feel like I'm not explaining it very well, but it is just so good. Like, they basically are like a gang of thieves, which feels like a bad way to describe them because of how much you love them, but it is essentially following this gang on their plot to break out this scientist. Then there's the second one, Crooked Kingdom, which basically follows them on like the aftermath of the first one, of like the heist kidnapping type thing. But honestly, I love these. I think because the fantasy, like, it can take a while to get into them, because these I think follow on from one of the other series, which is Shadow and Bone. I don't know if they're like follow on in the sense that you have to read them. Well, like, I didn't read Shadow and Bone, but I think it would make more sense if you'd read them before reading these, just because of like language that's used. Like, you would kind of be more familiar with things that are like going on in this universe. But I loved it regardless. Like I said, literally my favourite fantasy books ever. Okay, now that we've got the recommendation section out of the way, we're going on to what is actually on my autumn TBR. We do have quite a lot, I'm not gonna lie. I have like quite a few that are here with me, like on my physical TBR, but then I also have some that are either one on the way that I've ordered, or two haven't got yet but I do want to read this autumn. So first up, I actually do want to read some classics this autumn. So I have a big old pile. I have Little Women, which I have already read but years and years ago, so I do want to read that again, mainly because I have been hyperfixating on the like newer film version of this, so I want to go back and reread the book. Then I have The Great Gatsby, To Kill a Mockingbird, Jane Eyre and Pride and Prejudice. I do also have Wuthering Heights, but I'm not sure where that's gone, so I either need to find that or buy a new one. But yeah, I want to read my classics. I want to get into my classics bag, because I feel like when I read them before, it was like for schoolwork, so it wasn't for like enjoyment. I will actually just give a little forewarning here. I am rubbish at describing what books are about, especially if I haven't read them, because I don't really like reading the blurbs of books. Like, I like going into them blind, so I'm just gonna basically reel off what is on my autumn TBR rather than talking about what the books are actually about, if that makes sense. But these are the only ones that I actually have with me, like on my physical TBR. So I mean, we've still got a few, but I have about 4 that are due to come tomorrow, but I honestly just couldn't be asked waiting to make this video. So we have the second one of Before the Coffee Gets Cold, like the follow-on version, which is Tales from the Cafe. Again, I don't really like to read the backs of books, so I don't really know what this one is going to be about specifically. I presume it's going to follow the same kind of theme with people wanting to return to the past. I think it'll just be like a different variation, different stories, different people. Then I have 2 like Greek mythology books. So I have Ariadne, which I bought months and months ago and just haven't got around to reading. Then again, another Greek mythology, I have Circe by Madeline Miller, who is the author that wrote The Song of Achilles. So we have those 2 little Greek mythology books that I want to read. They are on my autumn TBR. Then I have The Fine Print. So this is like a romance. I think it's like workplace romance, billionaire romance from what I've gathered. It follows Rowan and I think she's called Zara. They work together, they don't like each other, I think, so maybe it's kind of like rivals, enemies to lovers. So I've got this one. I don't have terms and conditions, but if I like this one, then that is also on my TBR. Then I have Never Let Me Go. So again, this has been on my TBR for months. I've had this for ages and just never got around to it. I think this is like a dystopian kind of vibe. Then I have the Atlas 6. This is literally so bulky, it's so huge. Again, this has been on my TBR for months and I just feel like autumn is a perfect time to read it. I think this is kind of like magic-y, dark academia vibes. Then I have A Little Life and I'm terrified to read this. I've had this for months and months and months. It's just been staring at me on my bookshelf and I put it off every time just because it is so hefty and honestly sounds so traumatizing. Like, I don't think I am in the right headspace to be reading this book. But I think this follows a friendship group in New York and kind of like their struggles, which I'm not gonna lie, from the trigger warnings that I've seen, seems like a lot. Everyone that I've seen read it says that it is heartbreaking and it is really sad and like devastating, but also such a good book, such a good read. But I think because of like the nature and themes of this book, it seems more of like a autumn read. Like, I'm not going to sit and read this on the beach, like I'm truly not. Last one that I have on my physical TBR is The Kite Runner. So this is by the same author that wrote 1,000 Splendid Suns, which is one of my favourite books of all time. I absolutely love it. I have actually read this before in college, but I didn't really read it properly. I just really love this author's writing style and like the themes and topics that he writes about. I just think they're done so well. And I also have ordered And the Mountains Echoed from, again, the same author. So following that, the books that I've ordered but that haven't came yet, I have about 6 I think that I'm waiting for. So I have the X-Hex, which I think is like a romance. That's more of like a witchy romance, I think. Then I have also ordered Beartown. Can't remember the author's name. I think it's Frederick something. And I'm also waiting for If We Were Villains. That is like dark academia kind of vibes, I think. Then I have Full Tilt, which is a romance, I believe, but I think it is like really sad. But I saw Sarah read that in like a recent reading vlog, and her reaction was just like crazy, so it made me need to read it. Then I also have the Mindfuck series, which I have been waiting to read for so long. So from what I've gathered about that one, I think it is a romance, but like the man is like a police officer, FBI agent, whatever, investigating a serial killer, and the girl is the serial killer but he doesn't know, and they are like together. So I'm guessing it kind of follows like her being a serial killer and their relationship. And then the last one that I am currently waiting for is My Dark Vanessa. Again, don't know much about that one at all. I've had to write down the other ones that are on my TBR. I'm just going to reel them off because I don't have them with me to talk about. I have terms and conditions if I like the fine print. Magnolia Parks, don't know what that one's about. It just seems interesting and I've seen quite a few people talking about it recently. Then I have Love in the Time of Serial Killers. Then I have My Policeman, which I want to read purely because of the film coming out. Then I would quite like to read the Shatter Me series and the Cruel Prince series. Then I have The Secret History and The Goldfinch, both by the same author. I have seen the Goldfinch film, I think, but I've never read the book. I think that came out quite a while ago. And then The Secret History, I think, is like dark academia vibes. And then the last that I have like actual book is Rock, Paper, Scissors. That is like a thriller kind of read, I think. Again, I've seen Sarah talk about that recently, and I think it is about like a husband and wife. The husband kind of has like facial recognition issues, and they go on like a trip, I think, and something like tragic happens. I don't know. So I think that sums up everything that is on my autumn TBR. I might do like another one of these or like an autumn book haul when I get the new books in, because I feel like I've just kind of like listed loads of names at you and I haven't been able to show you them. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it gave you a few autumn book recommendations to add to your list. If you have already read any of these books, let me know what you think. Let me know which other ones I need to add to my list, and let me know what you are reading this autumn or what you want to read. Thank you so much for watching this video, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Bye!